I'm Rachel from the Academic Skills Centre, and today we'll be looking at critical reflection. First off, it's worth asking, what is critical reflection? There are three main aspects of reflection you should know about. Firstly, reflection should be personal. Critical reflection means not just presenting theories or information, but looking back at events in your own life and practice and explaining their significance. Your reflection should certainly engage with relevant sources, but the main evidence comes from your own experience. Just because it's personal, though, doesn't mean that reflection is vague or subjective. Rather, reflection should be analytical. It's not enough to make a few general statements about what happened. You need to explain in detail, looking carefully at precisely what happened, why it happened, and what you could have done differently. The more specific and detailed you can be, the better. Finally, reflection should be purposeful. After all, what's the point in thinking about the past if you don't also look forward to the future? Good reflection should consider what lessons you've learned, how you've changed, or what you might do differently in the future. If all this sounds a bit tricky, the good news is that there are several models or frameworks for reflection that help structure the reflection process. Reflective thinking can often be complex and maybe a bit messy. Models and frameworks help us make sense of the situations we are reflecting on. You don't have to follow any of these models exactly, but they can help you with structuring your thoughts if you don't know where to start. In the rest of this video, we'll explore a few of these models. Firstly, the DEEP model provides a strategy to help with writing a critical or academic reflection. The first step is description. For this to be effective, it's important to select a very specific experience or insight to reflect on. If, for example, you try to use it to reflect on your whole week, you're going to get bogged down right at the very beginning. Once you've described the basics of what happened, you move to interpretation. This is where you ask questions about what the experience means to you or why it occurred. After interpretation comes evaluation. Was the experience valuable? Did it teach you something you wouldn't have learned otherwise? Finally, end your reflection by planning your next steps. If you learned a lesson, how will you apply it in the future? If you tried a new approach and it didn't work, what will you do differently next time? Planning for the future is one of the essential steps in critical reflection. Now, one of the criticisms of the DEEP strategy is that it's a bit prescriptive, but this is also its strength. If you're new to reflective writing, it gives a very clear framework in order to process your thoughts and to structure your writing. One of the most famous models of reflection is Gibbs' reflective cycle. This model is particularly useful for situations that didn't go so well. Unlike some of the other models, it makes room for feeling. This model emphasizes the emotional aspect of reflecting, which is particularly important when you've experienced a disappointment. As in the DEEP model, we start with description. Here, you recount what you're reflecting on, providing a descriptive account with contextual information as appropriate. Next, we move on to feelings. In this section, you look back on your emotional state and your rational thoughts about the situation. How were you feeling at the time? How did your emotions and thought change, if at all, after the situation arose? After looking at your feelings, you should start to evaluate. In the evaluative element of the cycle, consider how well you handled the situation. Look for positives as well as negatives. Be fair to yourself and to the context of the event. Alongside evaluation, we also have analysis. This is where you attempt to make sense of the situation and relate it to theory and other knowledge if relevant. Then, as you conclude your investigation of what has occurred, it may be relevant for you to consider possible alternatives, the course of action that you took, or whether other options could have been applied instead. Finally, the action plan is your guide for future action. This section is crucial, as it's here that you identify what you'll do to ensure that you improve in how you handle similar situations in the future. Our final model, created by Rolf et al., is one of the simplest models, and it's also my favorite. It's based on just 3 questions, but that doesn't mean your reflection will be superficial. If you just take the time to dig deep into these questions, you can come to a much better understanding of the event First comes what, a description of the situation or event. Here, you might consider questions like, what happened in the event or the situation? What's the purpose of returning to this event? What did I see or do during the event? What was my reaction to it? What did other people do that were involved in it? How did they react, or what did they do as a result of it? Next, we have so what, where you analyze the event with questions like, how did I think or feel at the time? Were those thoughts or feelings I had any different from other people who were also involved? Are my thoughts or feelings now, after the event, any different from what I experienced at the time? What was the effect of what I did or didn't do? What positive aspects may emerge from the event? What have I noticed about my handling of the event by taking a more measured look at it? What observations do other people have on my behavior? Finally comes the crucial now what step. Here you'll consider future actions by asking yourself, what are the implications for myself or for my colleagues? How will it make a difference? Where can I get more information or learning opportunities? Do I need to modify my behavior? What's the main learning point? As you can see, the what, so what, now what model may be simple, but it's certainly not superficial. I want to end this video with a quick example from my own life, using the what, so what, now what model. Let's start with what. This experience happened 10 years ago, during my very first university class. I was young, scared, and I was late to class because I had car trouble. I'd never been in a university classroom before, and I didn't know if I belonged. Because I was late, I had to sit in the very back, between two big guys in hoodies. I felt totally out of place. Then the lecturer asked the class a basic question and started writing students' answers down on the whiteboard. I didn't know if I had anything worth adding, but I decided to be brave and raised my hand anyways. I gave my answer, and the lecturer really liked it. She wrote it up on the board, and suddenly I felt like I belonged. That's the what part of the reflection. You'll notice I described what happened along with a bit about how I felt. Now let's move on to so what. What does this one class I attended 10 years ago matter to me now? If I think back, I see that this was the moment I realized I was capable of succeeding at university. I realized that my contributions were important and that I needed to push past my shyness and speak up in class. Because of that one positive event, I came to the next class with even more confidence. And I forged a strong relationship with that lecturer, who became a mentor to me. If I was writing about this experience in an academic essay, I'd probably bring in some theory here as well, or refer to academic papers about confidence and belonging. So finally, it's worth thinking about now what? How should this experience impact my future? Even though it happened 10 years ago, I still think about that experience whenever I'm worried that I don't fit in, or I'm too shy to speak up. Thinking back to this experience helps me battle imposter syndrome even today, even though I'm a lecturer, not the student. I hope that little story helps you see how even a very simple reflective model can help you analyze past events and create a plan for your future. That's all I've got to say for now. If you're watching this video as part of one of our courses, you should take a few minutes to complete the accompanying activity. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at ask@dundee.ac.uk. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and good luck.